The opinions expressed on this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Cable 14, its sponsors, or its shareholders, Cogeco Cable, Shaw Cable, and Source Cable Limited.
And welcome to the November 29th edition of the Opinionators. I am Larry Deani, and the Opinionators is a program that talks about political opinions from an expert panel who are aligned with the mainstream political parties. And let's introduce them right now. In the middle is Ron Corsini, aligned with the Liberal Party. Hi, Ron.
Larry, nice to be here.
And of course, we have Tara Crugnale of the Progressive Conservative Party.
Hi, Larry.
And Alex Johnstone of the NDP. Welcome to you too, Alex.
Hello there, Larry. Got to see Nathan Rogers last night, who of course is Stan Rogers' son, a famous Canadian folk player. And from Hamilton, and yes, iconic at that. Very good. Well, I'm pleased about that. Well, panel, we have just a chock-full agenda this evening to talk about, and we're going to start with something that's very topical, and it has to do with the conflict of interest legislation in the province of Ontario, and it all had to be brought to the fore because of the Rob Ford situation. We're going to talk about Mr. Ford a little later on, but the rules, the conflict rules, have not been updated since the 1980s. And of course, what that means, and Tara, we're going to start with you on this, what that means is that they are perhaps outdated. Kathleen Wynne, who was the minister before she resigned her portfolio to run for the leadership, indicated that they were actually working on this legislation to update the rules. And some of the pushback has come actually from politicians who indicate that at the provincial level, which is the most supervised level of all three, the rules were going to be even more draconian than they are currently. What do you think? Should we update these laws?
Well, I think it's a no-brainer. It's just ridiculous to say that once you find someone in conflict of interest, you immediately have to remove them from office. It just doesn't make sense, and I don't think in this case justice was served for the people of Toronto. You need to have more leeway when giving your legislation on such a thing. I know that Kathleen Wynne was looking at this, especially because of Hazy McCallion in Mississauga and her conflict of interest case. I guess that was last year or the year before. But we see this time and time again. You know, things happen when you're in office, and yes, we have to deal with them, but it can't be so black and white. Now, I know the issue in the 80s when they were trying to change these laws was because the conflict of interest rules were being kind of bundled with other things that they wanted to change, including having councillors saying that councillors had to show their assets and things like that, and liabilities. And that's, I think, where councillors really pushed back, and they said that they didn't want to do that. But as an elected official, I think that, you know, those should be open books, and these things should be bundled together, and things have to be done, you know, in the province.
Well, and in fact, we're going to go to you, Alex, but Tara, just to point out that it's not just municipal councillors, it's everybody that's elected at the municipal level, which includes trustees as well. Yeah. Okay. So that it's a wider swath that they're trying to cut. Well, Alex, what do you think about this? Is there some merit in updating laws? I mean, if a law has been in the books for over 30 years, close to 40 years, maybe it's time to have a second look, don't you think?
I do agree that it's time for a second look. I think that it would be nice if judges had actually a menu of options. I know with school board trustees that there's all, unless you're in, I guess, conflict of interest, when trustees are, say, spilling things out of in-camera meetings or whatnot, or even with councillors, which can be far more damaging to, say, the city or a school board, they can't be fired. It's only in the conflict or I guess removed from their position. It's only in the conflict of interest cases. And it's very costly whenever you're doing an investigation, whether it's for a conflict of interest or a breach of a code of conduct, can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. I think, though, at the end of the day, it would be nice to have flexibility, and at the end of the day, really look towards, say, healing boards or healing city councils by, whether it's helping them to learn, up front the rules if they don't know it, they should be learning it right off the bat.
Well, Ron, let's go to you because you've been a municipal politician, and I know that the region at one time asked their municipal councillors to actually declare where their assets were in general terms, not in specific terms, but certainly specifically even if they had mortgages and who those obligations were or where those obligations were. Is that fair? Should we have that level of scrutiny with municipal politicians?
No, it's not fair, especially with municipal politicians. I know in the late 90s when I served on city council and regional council, I never had to disclose that information, and I would feel very uncomfortable having to disclose all my assets and liabilities. The act, the municipal act, even at that time, it was discussed at that time that the laws should be changed. I know I sat on a number of boards outside of City Hall that received city grants, and I had to state my conflict of interest up front before any discussions were made for, if not fear, but for information out there. I did not want anyone to perceive that I personally was benefiting from any funds coming from the city to my charity or to the board that I served on. So I had to state that my conflict. There were times that I took myself out of the discussion in order to protect the organization that I volunteered for and the city and my position on city council.
So, Ron, though,
those laws need to be changed and updated. But I do not feel that municipal politicians need to disclose their assets and liabilities. I don't know whether the provincial or federal politicians do, and
maybe Tara, you know about this, but certainly at the cabinet level, I think you've got to make those disclosures.
You do,
but you make them to the integrity commissioner or whatever the level is. I don't think they're public.
They're not made public.
I think the easiest thing though would be to take this conflict of interest issue and deal with it on its own, and then deal with other things that have to be done with councillors. But I mean, this has to be done sooner rather than later. And unfortunately, even with this latest misstep in Toronto, Kathleen Wynne's office is still refusing to speed things up.
But I don't know whether it's her office that is refusing to speed things up. I think it's the politicians that have to say yes.
Yeah, there's great pushback.
There's no pushback.
Well, listen, I think listen, we've run out of time with this topic, and I think because it is such an important topic, whatever happens with this particular case, you'll see a revision of the policy.
I hope so.
But let's move on, and this one is going to come to you, Alex, and it has to do with education. So let me ask you, as someone who follows obviously provincial politics, we thought we had some labor peace among teachers, but in fact, we are finding out that a couple of the boards have rejected even their bargaining unit's recommendation to approve a deal, and so we're back into the frying pan again. And in some cases, there may be a strike as early as the beginning of the week at the elementary level. Has the McGuinty government done enough to create labor peace? Or are the teachers being a little too out there and inappropriate at this time?
So a couple of issues, Larry. Just so the public knows that there was one deal with OSSTF, so secondary teachers, with one of the boards. The deal was reached, it was passed. Two boards voted it down. The reason behind that is that those boards look at it is if they support this, then they're actually supporting the government taking away their labor rights. And that's what this is all about. It's not about money. It's not about wages. They've agreed to all that. It's about taking away labor rights. Here in Hamilton, our understanding is that the vote is still going forward tomorrow, and so we could potentially still reach a deal here at the secondary level. I think that when you look at the elementary teachers, it's a completely different scenario. When we looked at the by-election with Kitchener-Waterloo, the Liberal government went after the provincial leader, Sam Hammond. It was completely nasty and childish at that, but they made it personal. They sent out flyers to all the residents of Kitchener-Waterloo with Sam Hammond's face on the cover with devil horns horns. Just completely outrageous, disgusting, and personal. And because they really fueled that attack.
I'm sorry, you're telling me that this was from a Liberal member with devil horns and...
This was they printed
it.
Who's they?
That was the Liberal Party.
The actual Liberal Party. So somebody actually did this. It wasn't some rogue.
It was sent out. It was approved by the CFO for that campaign. So this was sent out, and I think that if you want Labour peace, you shouldn't be attacking.
I'd like
personal
to see
attacks.
that because
it was all over Twitter.
Personally, I've never seen it.
I would have assumed that there would have been some issue.
I've never seen more than one horn on Sam Hammond. But what's your take on this? What is your take?
A bill was put in place to protect students from disruption of classes, from getting an education. And the teachers all the way down the line have said that this is an issue they have with the Liberal government and that students will not be put at risk. And clearly they are being put at risk as early as Monday, because that's when it's December and that's when elementary school teachers can strike. So yes, we're going to be getting 72 hours notice. They're gathering the troops. Something's going to happen, and it's putting us all at very ill ease, I think, and it's unfortunate because I think that some of these boards are now not accepting the contracts because they figure, okay, if we accept the contracts, then how does that make our court case look later on? Exactly. That we're taking these, that we're taking these deals. So I think it's all for their interest and not for the interest of the children. And I don't think they'll be making many friends with the public come December.
Ron, let me frame it for you this way. Here is a couple of boards, and we've just heard that they turned it down because if they didn't, they were playing into the government's hands, who is taking away their rights, their negotiating rights. And so they're turning down a negotiated settlement that their own leadership has agreed to, which seems to me as a little contradictory to their stand. Is it pure politics? That's the question.
Obviously, there's politics involved. I'm disappointed that some deal has not been settled with the teachers and the province. I believe that the province is trying now desperately to come to some sort of agreement before the end of December when all talks fail. I would hope that there would be no disruption in education or no disruption for the students in strikes. I'm a member of CUPE, and my union and myself, we are support workers in education. And we voted overwhelmingly, 93.5% at the last vote for strike action. I'm disappointed that we weren't allowed to discuss this before the province came down with their Bill 115.
Well,
having said that, I understand where the province is coming from, and I hope and I pray that there's no disruption in education.
Last comment.
And I'm really hoping that the Minister of Education and the unions and boards will come to some sort of settlement.
Larry, last word to you.
This has become, if there is a strike, this is a self-fulfilling prophecy. The Liberals created this. They didn't need to introduce Bill 115.
The Liberals aren't going on strike.
They didn't need to interfere.
It's the unions that are going on strike.
If I can just speak. All they needed to do was tell the boards what the parameters were, how much money they were getting. We could have negotiated it out ourselves.
They kind of did.
We didn't need them to interfere.
They already did that. And you can look at the Catholic boards. Larry, the Catholic boards accepted the deals, and those were the deals that they were going to use as a template for these deals. No. And so if your boards can't accept that, then there's a problem.
Taking away labor rights was
there is an absolute problem. The Liberals are going on strike.
That's what they're upset with.
All right, listen, we're going to have to move on to the third topic. I'm sure we'll come back to this, especially if there is the disruption. And the third topic at the federal level has to do with and Ron, we're going to start with you, with the Liberal leadership field. There are about a dozen candidates. I mean, everybody's focused on Trudeau, although yesterday another high-profile candidate did enter the fray, and that's the astronaut, the Canadian hero astronaut Marc Garneau. But everybody's focused on Trudeau, so is it too crowded of a field? And the corollary to that is that one of the candidates also indicated that really, if the center left wants to defeat the center right, they're going to have to join forces, the NDP and the Greens and the Liberals. What do you make of that?
Well, I mean, I don't see that happening, and I would not want to start any coalition or joining forces with other parties. The Liberal Party is the natural governing party of Canada, and I firmly and I believe it will be again, and it is again.
Sure,
but
Ron.
Arrogance.
No, it isn't arrogance. You know what? We have about a dozen candidates interested in the leadership, and this shows you that there is a rebirth and there is a lot of interest in the party.
So.
And a number of them aren't even elected members.
No, they're not. Tara.
Well, it is incredible how many people have now dove into the race. I think Justin is still at the forefront, but I do think it's interesting that some are once again rehashing. I wouldn't say it's the thoughts of a coalition. It's more about specific ridings, actually targeting ridings and saying, okay, well, looking at past votes, seeing how you split the vote. If you had joined all together, could you have beat the Conservative that was running? So I can see them. Thinking that they can do it, and they've tried to do strategic voting in the past, and it hasn't really worked out. So I don't think that it's going to move forward that much. But these musings will always let the Conservatives and Stephen Harper say, watch out for that coalition.
Well, what do you think, Alex? Should there be some collaboration with the center-left?
I don't. Well, you know that I do support it, and I do think that one day, as I've said on past shows, I do think the NDP and Liberals will be coming together. I think that that's our destiny. I will say that it's interesting that there's 12 candidates that are signed up for the federal Liberal leadership race. Many of them are not well known, and I think that that's significant in that it tells the Canadian public that there's I guess an attitude that you can get on the job training. Many of these people aren't even elected and have really no experience within the Liberal ranks, and certainly leading the natural governing party, as Ron likes to call it. I think that as it plays out, we'll see a lot of people drop off. Only 2 people have paid the $75,000 registration fee. So I think that it'll be interesting to see how many of them actually make it to January and are able to pay the $75,000.
Okay, fair enough.
We're good.
Sure. We'll wait and see. And it is a race. And,
I'm just waiting for the marriage between Ron and Alex that seems to be happening. I would think that you would agree. I thought you would agree on more things.
Well, listen,
I mean politically.
Political marriage.
Listen, we can perform those nuptials right here on the Opinionators if you folks are interested.
That would be the highest ranking show ever.
It will be like
just
Tiny
behind
Tim marrying
exactly.
whatever.
We will dance into the socialist paradise sunset.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. Listen,
I'll send a condolence card.
We are into the lightning round now. We're going to start this one with you, Ron. It actually has to do with the by-elections. 3 of them happened. One in Durham, one in Alberta, and one in British Columbia. The Durham one was a walk by the Conservative parties to replace Bev Oda. But the one in Alberta was a squeaker. The Liberals actually did very, very well. And the one in BC was a squeaker between the NDP that won and the Green Party. What do you make of that? Is there a lesson?
It shows me that 2 of the 3 ridings could have been taken away from the sitting members. But I wasn't surprised that the 2 Conservatives and the 1 NDP were re-elected for those ridings. But it does show me that there's a lot of interest out there, that those ridings are very unstable.
There's a resurgence. Tara, what do you make of that?
I disagree. You have to look at the numbers, and you go on Wikipedia and look at the percentages for the past elections and look at the number of people that voted. There was a lot of voter apathy out there, and I think that definitely came to head in Calgary. So I think that we will not have a problem in maintaining that seat, especially the one here in Ontario. I think, one of the biggest losers, though, were the NDP because the Greens really came ahead. And now they've shown themselves to be a contender again. So that's unfortunate.
Geesh, Larry, I saw all the head parties except for Green being losers in this. Certainly Conservatives should have been polling higher as they're the national governing party. Liberals should have been way up higher considering that they're in a leadership race. People should have been excited about voting for Liberal. It speaks to Trudeau in terms of a future leader as everyone thinks he'll win. With the Greens, though, I will say it was a tight race in Victoria. They also changed their position. So you had David Suzuki coming out in support of the Green candidate reversed that partway through. They had switched their position on sewage, and it became a local issue.
All right. Well, very good. So there's a lesson for each of the three parties. This next one is actually a piece of good news, and we're going to start with you, Alex, and it has to do with Mark Carney, current governor of the Bank of Canada, who's done a stellar job, everybody says. In fact, at one point he was even touted as a potential Liberal leadership candidate. But instead of that, he's going off to England to be the governor of the Bank of England. He's going to have to take English citizenship. A little furor there that a Canadian is doing that job, but great honor for us, don't you think?
Well, certainly. I think that in the 4 years that he was here, since 2008, he did a really wonderful job. One of the great things that I know the NDP especially liked was that he kept interest rates low. And I hope that whoever comes in to replace Mark continues to keep those interest rates low so that Canadians can continue to pay down their debt.
Tara.
You know, look at the Brits headhunting here in Canada. It really speaks to our economy and our position around the globe as a leader that Britain would choose one of our own to go and lead their bank. You know, I think we can only go up, and I hope that Carney's replacement can keep the momentum high.
And Ron.
Well, I'm very proud that he was chosen by the British government to oversee the Bank of England. I think that should make all Canadians proud. I'm sorry, on the other hand, that we will be losing him to Canada, but he has set the template for where Canada wants to go, and I think we will continue on that same path.
Very good. And Ron, you've got the floor on this last one, again sticking with the federal level, and it has to do with spending cuts in the military being made. Some say up to $3 billion or close to. And the ruling Conservative Party will not tell the NDP and the Liberals, and the job of the opposition is to keep the government's feet to the fire, but they have to have information. So they're stalwalling them and Kevin Page, the budget officer, as well. What do you make of that?
Well, what's the secret? What is the secret, Tara? As a taxpayer, I want to know. I want to know exactly where my tax-paying dollars are going. So, and I believe that they owe it to Canada to let us know what cuts are being made to the military.
Well, Tara, what is the secret?
You're putting peacekeepers, soldiers, you're putting a lot of people in danger by, you know, laying out all your information on the table. There are some things that need to be kept private, and you don't need to know everything, Ron. Unfortunately,
I have to know.
You know, we're damned if we do and damned if we don't. If we spend too much on the military, we're told we're not supposed to be doing that. If we do cuts that you want, well, where are the cuts coming from? I mean, just take it as it is. You will get your information as you need it.
Are you going to let me know?
Eventually.
Do you know? Never mind. Alex, what is this a symptom of?
Well, I think, you know, Tara's saying that you're putting people at risk, you know, if that even was the case, that there's certainly options in terms of the committee that the governmental committee, all the opposition needs to have access to those documents that sit on that subcommittee. So it shouldn't just be Harper's select Conservative MPs. It should be all of those that are, you know, part of governing Canada and part of governing the national defense.
All right. And now, panel, it's my turn. And I want to talk about something that we've already started talking about, and that is the unprecedented ruling by a judge in Toronto just this week that Mayor Ford has to be removed from his seat as the mayor of the largest city in the country. And so the question has to be asked, did the punishment fit the crime, such as it was? Remember that Rob Ford raised the money for charity to send underprivileged kids to playing football. Foolishly, he then was asked to, not foolishly, he was asked to repay that money because he solicited it using City Hall letterhead. Foolishly, he didn't repay it, and even more foolishly, he went to the committee to deal with it, to vote and speak against the motion to repay. That dragged him right into conflict. But really, did he deserve to lose a seat? The judge could have found an alternate way, because what he's done now, and we can see the turmoil in the city, he's thrown the whole city into turmoil. There are fights, there are rivalries, there may be a by-election, there's an appeal, and the whole community will be in limbo for months, if not years. Was that smart? I don't think so. Ron, what do you think?
I tend to agree with you. Foolishly on his part, it was $3,100, I believe. I mean, it wasn't thousands and thousands of dollars. He should have paid it back. But for having him removed from office and causing all this turmoil, I think it's gone. The judge went a little too far.
Tara.
Yeah, I think the judge was just trying to make a name for himself. It's really unfortunate because we know that Rob Ford, walks to his own drum. He is not a true politician. Many of us take pleasure in all his fumbles or whatever he does. But he's, I think, genuinely a good guy, and he was doing something for children. Did he go about it the wrong way? Yes, he did. But I don't think that he should be losing his seat for something that he didn't even gain financially from.
And
Alex.
Ford is not a true politician, said by Tara Crugnale, straight from her. I have to agree. This is an individual who certainly deserved to be kicked out of his seat. He continuously just thumbed his nose at the law, at the rules. He had complete disregard for it. And it wasn't just once, it was on multiple occasions. I think that certainly he has a responsibility as mayor, as the head of the city, to know the rules. And he just thumbed his nose at it. He thought he was above the law, and I'm sorry, somebody had to stop him. I'm glad the judge did.
Well, and unfortunately, the community is suffering, I think, at least in the turmoil.
No,
and hopefully they'll sort it out.
They're celebrating.
Come on, Alex, that's ridiculous. And when I say that he's not a true politician, that's a compliment.
All right. Well, we're going to have to stop there because we're out of time. But thank you for your opinions, and thank you for watching The Opinionators. We are going to be back 1 week from tonight to talk about other matters of importance.
Tara Crugnale's Hair by Ludi Mamoda Hair and Aesthetic Studio, 169 James Street North in downtown Hamilton.